What's van life Slovenia like? Well, it's a little like this.
Here's another one of Kelly's classic shortcuts.
This week, we're setting out to answer all your van life Slovenia questions. Can you wild camp in Slovenia? How much it costs? When to visit? What to see? And how long you need? We begin our van life adventure in Ljubljana, Slovenia's beloved capital, on a grisly November day.
We arrived in Slovenia last night after a long trip from Scotland. This morning we picked up a van from Balkan campers who are sponsoring this video. And now we're going to explore Slovenia by Campervan. It's starting to figure out that Slovenia is kind of like the adventure capital of Europe.
There's heaps of hiking and cool little cute villages. Better to be away from the cities, it seems like.
I think having a campervan is going to allow us to see a bit of a different side to Slovenia.
With only a week up our sleeves for this trip, we've designed a short and sweet road trip, taking in some of the best attractions found in Slovenia's alpine northwest.
First challenge is getting out of here. We've got a capital city on a rainy day and driving on the wrong side of the road.
I forgot about you driving on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah, I've just shifted. So I've been in the UK where they drive on the correct side of the road.
Incorrect side of the road.
Same way they do in Australia, and now I've got to remember how to shift onto the other side. See how we go, huh?
Luckily, I get plenty of practice. Caught in Friday afternoon peak hour, but soon enough, we're free of the city gridlock.
No, it's the wrong view.
We've just pulled up in a little town called Kamnik, which is only about 40 minutes outside of Ljubljana, but we waited till late on a Friday afternoon to leave and got pretty much caught in peak hour traffic. We found our first campsite for the night, car park tucked away behind a monastery. It's a little bit tricky to find places to park in Slovenia because wild camping and free camping is not really allowed, but outside of the national parks and the major tourist hubs, there are a few places where you can get away with it. Hopefully we won't be a nuisance to anyone and we won't get woken up or moved on in the middle of the night. Touch wood.
We unpack our stuff and set up the van ready for our trip. Before heading into Kamnik to see the beautiful old town, it's almost deserted with only a handful of locals around at sunset. Back in the van, we set up the bed and turn in for the night, ready to get an early start on our Slovenia road trip first thing in the morning. We're up and at 'em early, not long after daybreak, and after packing down the bed and a quick breakfast, we're ready to hit the road. We're making a last-second decision to reverse the route, tackling it counterclockwise to take advantage of the good weather predicted after the weekend.
We're leaving Kamnik. We wild camped, or we free camped for the first time last night. No one bothered us. Interesting how incredibly quiet it is here in the beginning half of November. We were walking through the town last night and there was literally no one on the streets, like a ghost town. And this was a really beautiful old town. So thinking about the best times to come here, I mean, this is pretty great. It's pretty quiet, but it's also a little bit rainy and everything was closed. So there are only a couple of bars and a couple of restaurants open. If you were coming and wanting to see everything when it's busy and open and packed, then you're probably going to want to be here between April and August, I guess. From September, things start closing, and by this time, towards the end of autumn, it's really, really quiet.
We got up early this morning and we're headed now from Kamnik to Škofja Loka, another beautiful town, about halfway to Lake Bohinj, which is where we're going to end the day today.
We stop in Škofja Loka for a coffee and are again astounded, not just by how pretty and well preserved the old town is, but how empty it is. We're continuing on along the scenic Selka Valley, and it's absolutely beautiful. Soon it's time to wind our way to the steep mountains in Sorica.
Amazing drive up.
And before too long, we're at an icy mountain pass.
Woo! On the way to Lake Bohinj, we decided to take the scenic route, and it was absolutely stunning. We went through this beautiful little valley with this stream along the way. We ended up climbing a mountain and found a ski resort, and there was actually snow on top, which was pretty incredible.
Before starting the descent back down to the alpine lake of Lake Bohinj. But before we get there, Kelly's found a waterfall she wants to take us to.
Definitely taking us on the scenic route today.
We're taking another one of Kelly's classic shortcuts.
So we didn't see a waterfall, and in fact this really narrow dirt road took us to nothing. These roads are not really roads, these little tracks. Almost got stuck, but Eddie is really good at driving, so luckily we did 17-point turn. Oh.
Back on solid ground, we stop for lunch and to let our heart rates come down as we relax by the peaceful Bohinj River. Then it's on to our final destination of the day, Lake Bohinj. We drive past the picturesque town and famous church, heading up to the headwaters of the lake to find the Savica waterfall. After another peaceful walk, we make our way back to the car, driving back past Bohinj in search of our campsite for the night. Once we're settled into our beautiful campsite for the night, we get to know our van a little better.
This is the van Špik from Balkan Campers, and it's a converted VW transporter that has all-wheel drive. That actually has a high top so people can stand up in it. It's got solar that charges up the battery, diesel heater, keeps you warm, electric heater for when you're plugged in so you don't run all your diesel out. There is a small fridge full of beer, electric water pump, and there's also an electrical socket where you can plug in to a AC circuit if you're staying in a campground. Another cool feature is the setup of the kitchen. Lots and lots of storage up here for food, clothes, up here as well for electronics or whatever else you've brought with you, hiking gear. And then this is the daytime setup. So at night, this actually converts into the bed. So just pull that down, then ta-da! Comfy bed. No room for Ed.
As night falls, we get the heater going and set about making dinner.
What are we making?
Vegetable chili. It's our go-to cold weather dish.
A lot of chili in our futures then.
Yeah, lots.
The next day, we awake to a frosty scene, but it's warm and cozy in the van.
The dogs.
What are you doing?
Watching the bulldogs. Oh God, come on. Go, McGoggy! Go, dog!
And after a leisurely start to the morning, it's time to get going again.
Last night was a little bit eventful because we had some kids that showed up in the middle of the night running amok at like 2 a.m. No bother, just a bit loud and noisy. But this morning was absolutely beautiful with the fog, with beautiful mountains behind it. Absolutely stunning. The bulldogs won. We spent the night at Lake Bohinj, and this morning we're going to drive up and over the same mountain we came yesterday to the Tolmin Gorge. Later, I'm going to share a shameful secret about how we're going to spend one night on this trip.
retracing our steps from yesterday, back up and over the mountain pass.
Stunning, huh? Postcard stuff.
And after a beautiful drive down the winding river, we finally reach Tolmin Gorge. We just pulled up at Tolmin Gorge. We're going to go for a little bit of a hike and an explore. The Tolmin Gorge is one of Slovenia's most famous natural attractions, and it's easy to see why. The deep river canyon and the ice blue waters that run through it are spectacular. After an hour or so exploring the gorge, we are continuing on.
We just left the Tolmin Gorge, and it's probably my favorite part of the trip thus far. And now we're headed to Kobarid and the Kozjak Waterfall.
This keeps getting better, isn't it?
You know, like in Lord of the Rings, and they live in that little fairyland. You know what I'm talking about? What's his name? Ewan McGregor or something like that?
No.
He's the elf. This is the type of water that he would have, I think, in his little elfdom.
You and McGregor would?
Yeah. Yeah, I really think so. It's just
You and McGregor from Lord of the Rings?
Is he not in Lord of the Rings? Who was the man? Ralph Fiennes. No. I know who it looks like. He's also in Game of Thrones. What's his name then?
I think you're probably thinking of Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving! Hugo
Not
Weaving.
in Game of Thrones.
Huh?
One of the things that I love about van life is the opportunity to find some calmness and tranquility in the beautiful spots that we find. And if you're looking for that, then Slovenia's got it in absolute spades. It is absolutely remarkable.
As the sun starts to set, we're beginning to get a bit hungry after a full day of exploring.
So about that shameful little secret I was telling you about earlier, where we're going to Hiša Franko, which is a 2-star Michelin restaurant here in Slovenia. And it's been on our list of things to do for about 5 years now. Anna, who is the chef, is a female chef, and she's never been to culinary school. She produces everything from the land here, and I really am pretty excited about it. If you're interested, you should probably watch the Chef's Table, because that's how we found out about it.
Despite having been thinking about this meal for 5 years, our high expectations are well and truly met, with one of the best restaurant experiences of our lives. The food was sensational, the staff, who have travelled from around the world to work at this institution, incredibly warm and hospitable, and the opportunity to visit the kitchens and the cellars at the end of the meal, fantastic. To top it off, the incredibly accommodating team at Hiša Franko even let us stay overnight in their car park. We awake to a cool and misty morning, but the sun is shining and we are eager to continue our journey. making our way along the river, heading this morning for Bovec.
We just left Kobarid and we drove to Bovec. We're going to continue onward to the Soča Pass, which is one of Slovenia's prettiest drives.
There's plenty to see along the way as we make our way along the rapidly flowing Soča River.
Sheep.
Goats, I think.
I think so as well. There's a couple of good things about being here during the off season. For one, there's fewer crowds. There's absolutely zero people here really. And the second thing is that the colors are absolutely stunning. I bet if we would have come a little bit earlier, we would have gotten to see them in full force, but they're still quite beautiful. There's a few downsides as well. One being that it's quite chilly, especially up in the mountains. Usually this time of the year is quite rainy, but we've managed to get a few sunny days. One of the biggest downsides is that a lot of the campsites are actually closed. For example, here in Triglav National Park, all the campsites close by October 31st, and wild camping is strictly forbidden here, which means we have to kind of go right through and not stay the night in the national park. We are just starting the drive along Hiša Pass, and already it's pretty incredible. Wound our way up to the top of the pass, and the views here are just absolutely stunning.
The top of the pass is already covered with snow, and soon it will close for the season until it begins to melt next April. We begin the steep descent toward Kranjska Gora. Finally, we find our camp for the night in a gas station camper stop.
Let's talk about the costs of campervanning in Slovenia. Fuel's not too bad here at the moment. We're paying $1.50 per litre for fuel, which is obviously more expensive than it's been in the past, but not as expensive as it is in some regions right now. Groceries from the supermarket are really cheap, and eating out can be done cheaply if you're eating in local restaurants and eating local food. Camping is a surprisingly big cost here. We've been able to wild camp. We're here off season and we've been pretty careful to find nice wild camping spots and using gas stations a lot. But if you're someone who needs to plug into electricity every night, if you need a shower every night and you're going to use campsites, then they're going to run you 40 to 50 euros a night, which for us, it seems really expensive. Other costs, parking costs, they're pretty reasonable here. In cities, it might cost you $1 an hour, maybe more if you're in a very touristy area like Lake Bled. National parks, they charge as well. You're going to pay maybe €3 to €6. There are some tolls, but they're not very expensive. And
The only other costs would be campervan rental. So if you're not bringing your own campervan, you should probably budget somewhere around €100, depending on what season you're here in and whether you need a large motorhome or you're happy with a smaller, older style van. That can make it a lot cheaper. We just woke up for our second to last day campervanning Slovenia, and we're actually sleeping overnight in a truck stop. Even though it might not look like it from behind me, there are a couple of truck stops or petrol stations that provide free camping in Slovenia, and they're one of the few free camping options available here. Free camping is actually prohibited. Even with the permission of the landowner, you're not actually supposed to sleep overnight in a campervan anywhere outside designated campsites. You can get away with finding a secluded out-of-the-way spot you know nobody's going to come, which is a little bit easier in low season and certainly easier if you're outside of the major tourist hubs. But other than that, other than risking it, your only options for free camping are these facilities provided by gas stations. There are some cheap camping options provided by the government here in some towns. You'll find a parking lot that costs between 10 and 20 euros depending on where you are, often with access to water, dumping spot and electricity. And after that, you're looking at private campsites. And the private campsites here are surprisingly expensive. We're talking like €50 a night for most of them. So you need to factor that in when you're planning a campervan trip in Slovenia. Plan ahead, think about where you're going to stay. Use Park for Night to find some nice campsites, and maybe be prepared to part with some cash if you need access to facilities like hot showers, electricity, Wi-Fi, all that stuff.
This morning we're driving to Lake Bled, which is Slovenia's most touristy destination. It's popular for the beautiful little church that's right out in the middle of the lake. We've been before during the height of summer, so I'm really interested to see what it looks like during winter.
Lake Bled is just as special in the autumn as the summer, with snow-capped peaks in the background and, as usual, no other tourists to share the view with.
Fun little fact about Lake Bled. Well, not really about Lake Bled at all, but this was the third place Eddie and I ever visited together.
Our campervan trip in Slovenia is coming to an end. We've got to take the van back tomorrow. But before we do, we wanted to talk a little bit about Balkan campers. Balkan campers actually allowed us to use this van Špik, to test it out, check it out, and let you guys know what it's like to see Slovenia in a Balkan camper. They're one of only a few campervan rental companies in the country, and they've got a specific niche. So all of their vans are like old school cool VWs. It's a pretty cool way to tour the country. These vans, for the most part, a little bit more sparse, but with everything you need to enjoy sort of off-grid camping adventures. If you're interested in a really authentic van life campervan experience in Slovenia, we can't recommend these guys enough. Not only for their cool vans, but also because they're really passionate about van life. They're like so super helpful. When you've got one of their vans, you can rely on them to provide advice or provide assistance with their vans. Huge difference from renting from a multinational where if you need assistance, you're texting an offshore call center. This way, you know you've got real people, real locals, real enthusiasts that can help you, and these guys have been absolutely great in that regard. Their vans run from between €80 and €120 for the most part, depending on which car and which season, and they're set up ready to go. They're not just in Slovenia, they're in all the Balkans, so if you are thinking about a campervan trip in this region and need a rent, definitely check them out. We can't recommend them enough. Today's our last day. We're dropping the van back in Ljubljana this morning and concluding our road trip through Slovenia, a land of churches, mountains and rivers, and it's been absolutely amazing. Have you enjoyed it?
Absolutely beautiful. Exceeded my expectations.
As usual.
As usual.
Blown away. Beautiful country to travel by campervan. We've only seen a little bit of it this time.
Yeah, I think you'd probably need about a month to really explore the whole thing. We only get to see the northwest corner.
And hopefully we get to come back and do that sometime. Thanks Balkan Campervans for sponsoring this one.
See you next time. Pretty luxe place to live for those old goaties.